$65. Hold on to that number for a second. On a quiet Monday afternoon in St. Paul, Minnesota, three coworkers walked into an apartment leasing office like it was any other day. Emails, phone calls, someone's coffee going cold on a desk. By 4:10 p.m., all three of them were dead. And when investigators finally figured out why, that number, $65, is what they kept coming back to. I want you to really sit with that, because by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly how something that small detonated into something this devastating. I've told a lot of stories here. This is one of the ones I genuinely can't stop thinking about. The office sat inside the Davern Park Apartments, in St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood. Quiet streets, big trees, the kind of place where neighbors will tell you nothing ever happens. The three people who died there weren't just staff. They were the people who ran that whole building. Dana Silcox was 56, a mother of four, a grandmother of two. Adam Wilwarding was 43, from nearby Oakdale. And Nancy Fuentes Zambrano was only 25, from Inver Grove Heights, just getting started in her career, in her life. None of them were famous. None of them had done anything except show up to work. What really gets me is how a tragedy like this almost never announces itself in advance. It just looks like somebody's ordinary Tuesday, right up until the moment it isn't one anymore. Just after 4 o'clock, neighbors started calling 911. Gunfire, they said, near the corner of St. Paul Avenue and West 7th Street. When officers reached the leasing office, all three staff members were already gone. Within the hour, police had an entire apartment building surrounded, the one where they believed the suspect lived. A SWAT team moved in. Officers got on a loudspeaker.
"Please come out with your hands up."
Nobody came out. He wasn't there anymore. Here's what investigators did know. A 30-year-old tenant named Tsega Binasu, a truck driver who'd quit his job 2 months earlier, barely had a record. A few parking tickets, and that was it. But according to court documents, his own roommate called police that night and said Binasu had phoned him and confessed to the shooting. Investigators say he'd already fled the scene, driving off in one of the victim's own cars. By nightfall, he was in handcuffs, more than 3 hours north, in Virginia, Minnesota, deep in the Iron Range, picked up by a St. Louis County deputy. And that's really the moment this stopped being a question of who and became a question of why. Because up until then, nobody had the faintest idea what would push a quiet, unremarkable tenant towards something like this. If you prefer true crime that waits for the truth instead of guessing at it, hit subscribe. According to the criminal complaint, security cameras inside the leasing office caught the entire encounter. Binasu, prosecutors allege, had been arguing with Wilwarding and Silcox, not over a lease violation, not an eviction, a parking contract. $65 a month for a garage spot the office wouldn't let him cancel. That's the detail that still doesn't sit right with me. Charging documents say he lifted his shirt, pulled out a gun, and in a matter of seconds, the confrontation turned fatal. One of the victims reportedly tried to get out through the office window. Investigators later recovered 21 shell casings from the scene. But to me, the strangest part of this whole case isn't even the motive. It's what came out afterward, in Binasu's own words to police. He told investigators he'd spent 7 years trying, and failing, to bring his wife and children to the United States from Ethiopia, and that the failure had ended his marriage. He talked about the American system like it was something that had already taken everything from him, long before that Monday ever happened. I want to be really clear here. I'm not telling you this to explain away what he's accused of doing. 3 people are dead. Nothing makes that okay. But it's the kind of detail that, instead of resolving the case in your head, almost makes it harder to sit with, because it means there wasn't some obvious monster hiding in plain sight. There was just a man, falling apart quietly for years, until he wasn't quiet anymore. And then there's the detail I keep coming back to. When deputies finally caught up with him, hundreds of miles from home, he didn't have a plane ticket. He didn't have a fake ID. He had freshly bought camping gear, like some part of him was planning to just walk into the woods and disappear. Binesu is now charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder, each carrying up to 40 years in prison. He made his first court appearance this week. This case is still in its earliest days, and legally, he is presumed innocent until any of that is actually proven, which I think is always worth saying out loud, no matter how a case looks from the outside. The night after the shooting, around 100 people gathered outside that same leasing office. Someone played Amazing Grace on bagpipes. People left flowers on the stairs where, less than a day earlier, 3 co-workers had simply been doing their jobs. There's an arrest here. There are charges. In a lot of ways, this case moved faster than almost any I cover on this channel. But for the people who love Dina, Adam, and Nancy, having a name and a court date doesn't actually answer the only question that matters. How a Monday afternoon and a $65 bill became the worst day of so many people's lives. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.
Shh.